So I'm going to cover the different forms of shelter, just talk about them a little bit and why we're doing the type of shelter that we're going to do in class. So you've got brush shelters, where if I took a ridgepole and I leaned it up against a tree or a wall and then made a skeleton frame with limbs down the side of it and just started throwing brush on it, no more than a debris sleeping bag. It's like making a nest. Like if I didn't have a way to make fire, that would be a good option. Another good option that requires no caloric expenditure, pretty much, is to find a cave or a huge tree that's fallen over at an angle and the limbs are keeping it propped up. It could provide space for me to get under and at least get out of the rain, depending on how big the tree is. So that one requires no caloric expenditure, and you're just finding them at will. So you're looking at the landscape and you're trying to find something you can use so you don't have to expend all those calories. Because when you're building a shelter, depending on the type, it can be really tough to make it rainproof, and you put in a lot of time. Most of them aren't portable. So most people understand or have seen a lean-to. So you take a ridgepole, you can stick it between two trees or prop it up. You can make a lean-to and not require any cordage. So if I take a big long ridgepole and I can find two limbs that are wise, that are splitting out on a tree, I can set it right in between there. And then I want to keep my brush that I stack on the other side at least at a 45-degree angle with a lean-to. If you go much above that, you're still going to be able to use the surface tension of the water to pull itself down the limbs, but you don't give yourself a lot of space underneath. If you go below a 45, so if we're talking about like a 30-degree angle or something like that, you lose the surface tension of the water and your shelter is going to leak. Yeah, it gives you more room underneath, but it's going to leak. You need about 2 to 3 feet of brush on the other side to make it rainproof. The problem is, the weakness, it's not portable. The advantage is you can do it quickly. 2 or 3 hours, you can make it rainproof, but it takes some time. So you do that, and now the next day, you build on the other side. Now that gives you an A-frame. The advantage of an A-frame is I don't have to worry about the wind shifting or the rain shifting and now blowing into my shelter. Now I'm protected from both sides. Both of those can have a fire inside of them, depending on what you make that shelter out of, or outside or inside or close to it. A brush shelter, you can't do that. Like a debris hut, no way. Because it's made out of all this dry brush. It's like it'll go up in a flame. So I'm not going to go through every type of shelter. You have wickiups, which are like teepees, where you take all those straight poles and you start off with a tripod and build onto that. That is a lot of work. That's if you're going to be out in the bush for 3 weeks to a month. Like no way of self-rescue, and you're going to be there a long time. And you got more than 1 or 2 people to help you out to build it, and you need a lot of space inside of it. You can make it rainproof, but it's pretty difficult to do. So you have wigwams, you've got all these different forms of shelter. We're going to make a mobile, primitive shelter. So we're going to take the binding knot that you just learned, we're going to take the cordage that you made, and we're going to tie it together. I'm going to show you the simplest design. You can make it more advanced if you want, but I'm going to show you the minimum. How many sticks do I need in order to make this? And it's really modeled after some of the fence designs. So you've got 4 sides. You've got 1 or 2 poles that come down the middle just to keep the brush from falling through, and you've got another one that comes across at the diagonal to kind of prevent it from losing its shape and shaking loose the cordage. So you're looking at roughly 6 to 8 pieces that you got to tie together. But it's mobile. You can use it in raft design. If somebody gets injured, I gave the example of her breaking her ankle and we had to carry her out. Now we have a gurney where we can carry her out. If we've got to continue to move and the rain gets bad, our shelter's with us. We don't have to worry about getting stuck in the rain. Shelter from last semester, I allowed them to use cordage. Y'all are going to replace that with natural cordage. There went something, lizard or something. So what they've done is taken 2 sides and just put them together. There was nothing that they had to prop it up against, so they didn't have to put it between 2 trees. If you only had one side built, that's all the time you had, let's say before it rained,
you could take just a ridge pole and stick it between two trees and then prop it up against that and try to keep it at a 45-degree angle. They made them kind of short. What happened was we had built another brush shelter and the city came and tore it down. They didn't realize they were on our property. And they didn't realize it was for a class. And so they tore it down. So some of that cedar, some of it's false willow, and we just used all of that to piece it back together. There are some additional sticks down there at the bottom that you can use if you want, but we're going to break this apart and take it with us back up to campus. And then if y'all need any additional grass, we've got to be careful. Rattlesnakes are out now because it's cold during the night and then it's warm during the day, so they're going to come out in sun during the day to get that body temperature back up. Hopefully they're back underneath some shade and they're warm now, but I have no guarantee of that. So if y'all go digging around for grass to put on this thing, keep that in mind. Some of this stuff here, this was made last semester, so it may be a little brittle. This is the stuff that was made yesterday, so it should be flexible. The advantage of it still being green is it's going to self-tighten. After we leave it on there for a while, it'll tighten down. Y'all can redo this whichever way you want to do it, but at least have the minimums. So you want a little extension. These were cut not necessarily for this shelter, so they won't match these notches that are in here. So don't expect them to match up. This one. And I want a little overhang. I don't want it to be too close to the edge. So that's my beginning. You'll need at least 2 here on this side. What that's going to do is lock in. So once you get that tied together, you're going to flip it over, and on this back side, from one angle to the next, you can put one of these thin ones across underneath. But get it tied together like this first, and then go from edge to edge with one of these. What that'll do is prevent that square
Wrecking.
like it's just like a fence. So if you've ever made a fence, you're doing the same thing here. You could get by with just one here depending on how long your grass is. So like if we cut this Johnson grass, it's full length. A lot of times you can just lay it on here, but normally you're going to have at least 2. And you can even make an X across here if you want to. It just depends. How much are you willing to cut? How much time are you willing to invest? This should be your bare minimum.